Hi everybody, I have some breaking news. This is about the discovery of a whole new hyperdimensional solar system. And to understand that, I'm sitting down here with David Sereda. We're doing a YouTube for 1 hour and we're going to do a deep dive on understanding how he cracked the code to understand that we're not just revolving around a single sun, we actually exist in a double sun or a hyperdimensional solar system. So that David's had experience working with NASA and he's planted millions of trees. He's worked with the top physicists in the world and he works with light stream harmonics. He's a world scholar on this issue, and something happened to him that put him into another direction based on his background. And what happened was his wife Crystal had passed and she did make communication with him. There was no conversation, but she said, "You will understand." So he thought, okay, I'm going to calculate how many days has it been since my wife passed. And she first appeared around 243 days or something like that, but she made another appearance. And this was the key that unlocked the code. She made an appearance at 591 days and she said, "You'll understand what this means." So he decided to calculate the 591 and he said, "I'm going to divide that number of 591 days by the golden ratio," because this subject we're engaged in is called Phi in the solar system. So when you divide 591 days by 1.618, you get 365.256 days exactly. This is precise. So this 591 days was the golden harmonic of the Earth cycle around the sun. And you thought, okay, I'm going to divide 365 by the 1.618, and then he got the cycle of Venus and he did it again, and there was a little gap, and then he did it again. He kept dividing and got Mercury and even got Vulcan, which is very close to the sun. So then instead of dividing by, so going back to Earth 365, we're going to multiply by the golden ratio 1.618033988. And so when you multiply Earth cycle around the sun by 1.618, you get Mars. And that's the 591. And then he does it again and it skips something and you get Ceres. And then, so we have this below and above solar system. So the numbers up, under the plane here are Earth, and the numbers above are in the other dimension. So as you keep multiplying by 1.618, we get Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, but there was little gaps in between. So just like if we have matter, there's antimatter. If we have particles, there's antiparticles. So I remember when I was doing research with Pythagoras in my early days, Pythagoras always talked about another Earth, that we're on this physical Earth, but there was another multi-dimensional Earth where we existed as well. Could have been like on the other side of the sun. So what's happened is that this 591 days, it's actually a cosmic love story, because his wife came from the other side, from another dimension, made contact with her beloved, and him as a scientist and also visionary, he cracked the code. So every astrologer and astronomer needs to at least contemplate this issue, that we've only had insufficient data to understand this cosmos. This is what sacred geometry is about. We're wanting to know who we are, where we came from. So we're not just matter, we're also antimatter. It's almost saying, this quantum theory, that if there's a human or you, there's another you in another dimension. So what I suspect from this conversation is that there's more to the story than what we've been told, and that when we just study normal astrology, we're only seeing the physical planets. Now we understand we exist and coexist in a non-physical world. So I just find this interview really important. So David is just going to go through this chart. So just so you know, there's going to be a solar system below and there's a solar system above. And the key point was the 591 days when Crystal visited David. So hope you enjoyed this conversation. See you on the other side. Welcome everybody. Today we're having our third session with David Sereda, who's a world expert on the Tesla technologies. He's currently working with the light stream frequencies and harmonics, which is kind of like leading edge, and the future of medicine as we know it is in these harmonics. So David's devoted 40 years of his life to this. He's also worked in many other with other NASA scientists on space propulsion. But you can read up on David's life, and the theme for today is Phi in the solar system. So David's going to give us an account of how he came across this hyperdimensional or double sun solar system.
So today, what I'm going to show and demonstrate the formula that my wife gave me from the other side by calling out my name. I'm going to show this graphic, which you have also. And then I'm going to show you calculations that I make from the Great Pyramid to locations on the Earth using the golden ratio. And you're going to see how what I call the harmony of the order of the solar system imprints on the ground, which is miraculous.
Right.
So in this model, when my wife died, August the 9th, 2021, she was doing this communication with me where she would call out my name at intervals of time that I would calculate from the day she died to the event of hearing her voice. And the first time she did it, it was 225 days after she died. And I knew immediately what that meant because I'm kind of got a lot of the orbits of the planets memorized. So when you look at these numbers, like Earth 365.256, that's the number of days it takes Earth to go around the sun.
Yeah.
Venus is just under 225 days. Mercury is 88, just a tad under 88 days. It's, I mean, the very fact that my wife, I never would have knew this number 591. The very fact that 591 divided by the golden ratio is the exact
Yeah.
sidereal time for Earth alone from a person who has deceased,
Right.
um, really is something that has never existed. Nobody, the sidereal period of Venus is very close, but this is an exact relationship of one to the golden ratio. So that suggests these upper nine that the Egyptians called the Aeneid.
Yep.
There were two nines. There was the upper Aeneid and the lower Aeneid. So
Yep.
and again, nine in antiquity there were seven planets, as in the 7 days of the week that you just demonstrated. But also the Dante, the Italian poet, in his Paradiso, when his beloved Beatrice, his spiritual tour guide, takes him through the positions of the lower planets. After seven, he finds two more, and he describes them in the color tones of Uranus and Neptune. And when he's just beyond what we would call Neptune, the ninth, she shows him nine more planets of the angels descending back to the sun. So it
Beautiful.
was really Dante in his epic poem, the Paradiso, was is the first person in a more progressive era
Hmm.
that that actually saw this. So again, when you read literature like the Aeneid and the Nines, we think, what are the nines? Like
Yeah.
they would attribute a god or a goddess to a star or a planet, just like the Greeks did, and the Greeks likely borrowed it from the Egyptians. But
Right.
we had no reference point. In fact, at the time of Dante, there wasn't no Uranus and Neptune. They weren't discovered yet until
Right.
18th and 19th century. So
Right.
how could he have described them so well? Because he wasn't just imagining this stuff. He was having true out of body, if you will, visions. So I think what my wife has done with this number,
Mm.
giving approximate values for the nine planets below and the nine planets above, going and reaching Nibiru is epic. You're right. It's something that the ancient Greeks and the ancient Egyptians that everyone was striving for,
Right.
and looking for a ratio formula. Again, there are two harmonies.
Yeah.
One harmony starting at Earth, using the ratio of the Ark of the Covenant, takes me to Mars, dwarf planet Ceres, and Neptune, and the upper harmony using 1 to 1.618
Mm.
shows me the approximate values to high degrees of accuracy of all the other planets,
Yeah.
plus the upper nine. And of course, we finished in the December descending order we got to the height of the Great Pyramid of Egypt by a factor of 100
Yeah.
is just incredible. It means there's something coded. When you build a golden rectangle and you center line it and build a pyramid, you come to the slope angle on your bottom two corners is approximately um, the exact slope angle of the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And I want to clarify that because it's not exact. The ratio of the rectangle that would produce the exact slope angle
Yes.
of the Great Pyramid, which is, here we go. So the ratio of the base of the side, actually, no, the slope angle of the Great Pyramid is 51.853972 degrees right here.
Yes.
And so we need a reverse 10 of its complementary, 38.146028. So the ratio of the base side of the Great Pyramid to its exact height varies slightly on all four sides, actually.
That's
But
right.
the approximate ratio of the base side to height is 1 to 1.57. See this?
Yep.
357,132. So when I reverse tan this, my complementary is 38.1951, which means the golden ratio of the Great Pyramid used to create its slope angle is 1 to 1.57357. You see this?
Yep.
So this means the measurements for the side is not 100% accurate to 1 to 1.618,
Okay.
0339887. But what's interesting to me is this ratio of the rectangle that builds. Remember, last week we showed the last session we showed all the three pyramids on the Giza plateau and how their angles varied slightly, very slightly.
Yep.
And if you see this study on the human skull, the ratio on the human skull actually varied between 1 to 1.57 right here, you see, plus or minus 0.10 to 1 to 1 to 1.64 actually right here. So that means humans, the ratio of the skull from the tip of the nose to the soft spot on the head, and you know, if you see a picture of the top of a baby's hair, you see the Fibonacci golden ratio spiral on the top of the head.
Yep.
And to the back of the neck is where this study was done. So I find it fascinating
Yep.
that the pyramids ratio, I mean, of course, um, this is, there are three pyramids whose degrees vary slightly, and there's a migration, which we talked about last week. But I just wanted to show the math on the reverse tan
And
to say,
that number 0.786, if I remember correctly, that's the square root of the golden ratio, the inverse, the reciprocal of the square root of phi, I think is 0.786. So it's a harmonic of the golden ratio, 0.786. It's it's
exactly.
1.272 reciprocal anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. I wanted to clear that up.
We're going to be looking at David's ascension of the planets that he worked out from communication with his wife. So there's an amazing chart, but I found in this book called A Little Book of Coincidences by John Martineau, another order of the planets done about 200 years ago today. But I just want to read out quickly. So in 1776, this guy called J. Titius had a sequence like the Fibonacci sequence, but then this guy called Bode in 1778, Bode said, why don't we add four to every number? So when you add four to 3, 6, 12, 24, you get 4, 7, 10, 16, 28, 52, 100, etc. And then he worked out that he let Earth equals 10 units to fit the planetary orbit. It sort of matched all the radii of the planet quite well, except for Neptune. There was an enigma, an anomaly with Neptune didn't fit the scale. But then someone comes along in 1801 called Giuseppe Piazzi. He's the one that discovered Ceres. And what he did was he looked at this sequence and realized that there was a missing gap in that kind of Fibonacci sequence somewhere around up here. But I just wanted to show that it's really interesting that what David's going to talk about has been attempted by many great minds hundreds of years ago. And I just thought that was of interest to sort of set the tone that you've taken this to another whole new level, what others have been doing with
I'm
mathematical.
glad you brought that up, and also I'll show you a calculation on the synodic orbit of Venus because it is so close to the
It's very
591.
close. Yeah, very close.
When I was doing the calculation, starting at 591 divided by the golden ratio, I got Earth. Divided by the golden ratio, I got Venus. Divided by the golden ratio, I got this planet here, which lines up perfectly with the ascension day of Jesus, the miracle of the sun at Fatima, the ascension of Saint Francis, and actually the Buddha's birthday. Divided
Uh,
by the golden ratio, I got Mercury. Divided by the golden ratio, I get this position here, which I'm calling the angelic cherubim. Divided by the golden ratio, I got Seraphim. Divided by the golden ratio, I got Vulcan. And let me show you
mm,
another graphic, which is really, really remarkable because what if I keep going with this number, but we go to my calculator again, this is really important what I'm going to show you here. 591 divided by 1.6180339.887. I'm going to keep going. There's Mercury, cherubim, seraphim. That's actually the orbit of planet Vulcan, which is a hyperdimensional planet discovered by the Paris Observatory physicists, not which we've already covered. I'm going to keep going three more times. Lucky sevens.
mm.
And that's the height of the Great Pyramid of Egypt, right there in
Oh,
feet. All you got to
oh,
do is go times 100.
yeah.
Okay, 480.519 feet.
Oh, great. I get it.
You
Yeah.
see that?
Yeah.
So that means the height of the pyramid in feet is coded with a number that is equal to 100 years, which is a complete orbit of all the planets.
Yeah.
Because if I take this number and keep going with the golden ratio,
Mm.
I'm going to go all the way. So watch what happens. I'm going to go way out. 591 times 1.6180339.887. And I'm going to go, Pat, that's Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, just past Neptune. I'm going to keep going. That's actually Eris and Gong Gong, really accurate to
Hmm.
two dwarf planets way out there. I'm going to keep going, keep going. That right there is
Yeah.
the orbit of Nibiru. I'm going to divide this by 365.256 for Earth days. And according to ancient Hindu astronomers, and according to Zecharia Sitchin, the orbit of Nibiru is approximately 3,600 years. But
Oh, okay.
according to ancient Vedic scriptures, they give us a number that is almost exactly this number right here.
Mm.
If I
Strange.
divide this by 3,600 years, my accuracy is 99.19%. So
Yeah.
how
That's
did
good.
all this happen? Remember, the golden ratio is acting approximate. Now, this is going to get really mind-bending now
It's
because
interesting because we've never thought about the number 591. No one's ever, I've never heard, I've
no,
tried in a dictionary on harmonic numbers. No one has ever talked about this cosmic number 591. And just for my audience, when David had that number like 4.480 in harmonic maths, we're permitted to slide the decimal to the left to make a number smaller, but he moved the decimal to the right, making it bigger. So the future in maths is understanding that we have permission to slide the decimal because harmonic maths is a key and it's not being used or accepted by modern day mathematicians. So this is why this is important work, and you're connecting it all to the height of the Great Pyramid, which is excellent.
which no one's ever done before. So
No.
it's by a factor of 100. So that's 100 cycles of each planet. In fact, let's just briefly before I go to this next point, let's take what was the synodic orbit of Venus again?
584, according to this book, I think.
Yeah, it's 584.
Yeah,
So that's
584.
again 500 every 584 Earth days. So let's take that divided by Venus,
Yeah.
which is and Venus exact. Let's do Venus exact, which is 224,701. So let's do this. Divided by 224.701. And it's 2.5
Right.
99. So what is that? That's the golden ratio.
Squared. That's
That's
almost
the
2 point.
golden ratio squared, 2.618, right?
Yes.
Divided by 2.618 is 99.27% to the golden ratio squared.
Right.
So the synodic period is also incredibly close. It's incredibly close.
Yeah.
And that is interesting. I just wanted to bring that up
I
because
did
Dane
it.
brought
I did your calculation another way. I did 584 times 5 because it's going to make the pentagram, the Venus thing over 8 years. So 584 days is when Earth, Venus, and Sun they all line up. And then when you multiply it by 5, you get 2,920. Then I divided it by Earth's 365.2, and
right,
I got 7.99, which means it's close to 8 year cycles. So then I
right.
compared the 584 to the 591. So when I did 591, your number times 5 divided by 365.2, I got 8.091. So these Venus kisses, they call it the kiss of Venus. It's so close whether we use your 591 or the 584 synod. I don't know exactly what that means, but they're very similar.
Well,
Um,
let me show you something also really quick because we're going to take before I think hopefully we'll have time to brief on
yeah,
my
we've
really
still got
big
half an
discovery.
hour. We've got half an hour.
Okay, good. Yeah, we're going to make it. So let's take the orbit of Earth, 365.25, nope, 0.256
Yep.
in sidereal. And we're going to multiply it by a Fibonacci 3-5 ratio, which is what the Ark of the Covenant is built on. Because the Ark of the Covenant is 1.5 by 2.5 cubits, which is a ratio of 1 to 1.66666, infinite sixes, right?
Yep. That's
So I'm going to keep going. And right there, that number is almost the exact period of the orbit of dwarf planet Ceres, which is actually 1679.81 actual.
very
Look
good.
at how close that is to Ceres.
Yes.
And I'm going to keep going. That's past Jupiter a little bit. That's quite a bit past Saturn. That's a little bit past Uranus, but that's almost exactly Neptune's orbit.
Right.
The accuracy on this to Neptune's actual is 60189 divided by what I just got is 99.639% accurate to Neptune. So that's demonstrating that actually Mars, dwarf planet Ceres, and Neptune are from Earth are in a harmony with the ratio used to build the Ark of the Covenant. Now that's really, really
Mm,
profound because it's establishing two different harmonies in the order of the solar system that are using Fibonacci numbers.
yep.
So we're not stuck at exactly 1 to 1.61803. Now
Right.
watch where this all goes next in my work. So this is going to get mind-bending because what happens next is when I built this model, which has taken me over a year, where I take measurements from the Great Pyramid, and these measurements literally are done in a scale of feet. 1 foot equals 1 day,
Right.
right? That's my scale. And when I take a measurement to a target, like this Coptic Church of the Virgin Mary, where she appeared in 1968 in a full apparition body of light, and I take that measurement in feet, I subtract 8 inches per mile for the curvature of the Earth, which does very, very little.
Yeah.
And then I do a calculation. Let me show you because I actually did this one today. Every one of these lines that leads to a target, when I take the measurement in feet and divide it by the golden ratio, let me show you what happens because I'll show
Mhm.
you in this manuscript here what that actually looks like because I go to the birthplace of Christ. I've actually done the birthplace of the Buddha and I've done the birthplace of Krishna, so I've done the birthplace of Muhammad. So this is what happens. This is what it looks like. So I take the measurement on a measuring tape from the tip of the Great Pyramid to the exact spot where Jesus is born. And the exact spot that he's born is almost you see
Mm.
is so close
Mm.
to the orbital period of Nibiru.
Does that
And
mean
if I keep
Nibiru?
dividing
Does,
it,
does that mean Nibiru was present when Jesus was born, like it was at the apogee, the what do you call it when it's closest to the Earth?
well, that would be no, it would be at a 3,600 year orbital period.
Yeah,
And that's a huge question. And again, remember, that's approximate.
right.
Physician didn't say exactly 3,600 years.
Okay.
So what I do, you see this number here,
Yes.
1,423,754 feet. That's after I subtract my 8 inches per mile. And I keep dividing by the golden ratio. And I've got 97.41% of Eris and Gongong's orbit, which are dwarf planets beyond Pluto. I'm only 75.85% of Neptune's orbit. Uranus's orbit is 98.76% accurate.
Mm,
Saturn, 92. Jupiter is at 98%. So this tells me that Jesus's birth position. Now, this is imprinted on the ground. So imagine, finger here is the Great Pyramid, finger here is the exact site of the birthplace of Jesus in Bethlehem, the Church of the Nativity. And I take that, subtract the curvature of the Earth, so I'm straight lining like a polygon, dividing by the golden ratio and generating all my numbers. And I'm coming all the way back to the height of the pyramid. So what happens is all these percentages tell me which planet is in the highest percentage. And it's in the case of Jesus, it's actually dwarf planet Ceres is
mm,
99.46%.
right.
Jupiter is second at 98%. Uranus, 98.76% is actually second. Jupiter third. You see what happens?
Yep.
And Earth is 91.6%, Venus 91.31,
Mm,
Mercury's 93.5. So what this chart does is he gives me the percentages of which planets are in the highest harmony from the distance of the Great Pyramid to that location. And it works for for the birth of the Buddha, the birth of Krishna. Krishna is actually Saturn and Mercury. He's almost 100% accurate to Mercury. The birthplace of the Buddha is phenomenally Neptune and Earth. Incredible. So
mm.
this method of using the golden ratio has never been discovered before. In fact, I've done this. I'm just going to demonstrate here on a share screen. I've done this for so many positions, and I've got a lot of videos on this. And then I measured the angles to these positions. So I have the Magdala family temple in the Sea of Galilee, and this position is where Jesus appears in his resurrected body 3 times to the apostles at this angle and this measurement.
Right.
This is high harmony to Neptune, which is really amazing. I've done actually the not only the birthplace of Jesus, but the baptism site of Jesus is also on the same angle that Peter Le Mesurier discovered, which is the 26-degree angle coming out of the Great Pyramid to the birthplace of Jesus, but also to his baptism site.
Yep.
And that measurement in distance, every one of these distances calculates at a harmony of the order as like an imprint of the entire solar system in the distance. In
Mm,
fact, this angle here, which is 26.3 degrees to the west,
mm,
lines up with the position of where the miracle of the sun happened at Fatima,
mm.
Portugal, October 13th, 1917.
And that
So
26 degree angle is the ascending chamber, the ascending
well, yeah, that's
stairway.
right. That's right. So the ascending chamber in the Great Pyramid and the descending passage are 26 within 26.3 degrees of accuracy. So why that angle
Mm,
on the setting position caused the miracle of the sun at Fatima, and on the rising position is the birth and baptism of Jesus. That's because a hyperdimensional unknown planetary body is rising in the eastern position and setting in the west, which would be the true star of Bethlehem.
Mm,
And so that true star of Bethlehem would be in the inner solar system because what happened at Fatima that day on October 13th, 1917, um, lines up with two orbits of my planet 139 in my hyperdimensional model to an unknown body in the inner solar system. It's really incredible when you read the eyewitness testimony. It looks like an annular ring eclipse with all these colors that you get in the annular ring type eclipses, except there was no moon that day, and nobody knows how and why it happened. Well, the phenomena actually repeated. There were two Fatimas.
yeah.
See, I've got this right down to where Mary Magdalene's boat landed in what later became France. And when I calculate the harmony of the order at that distance, it's Neptune. Neptune is becoming more and more clear to me with all of the feminine positions in my charts. So this is a whole new way
Yeah.
of using the golden ratio, and why this works from the Great Pyramid to all of these events at these sacred angles, including this green one here, is
Yeah.
Stonehenge. And if I leave the Great Pyramid at 51.85 degrees to the west, which
Yeah.
is the setting position of an unknown body, I will end up exactly at Stonehenge
Can
right
I
here.
just ask a
And
question?
that is,
For those
yeah,
that
yeah,
don't
yeah,
understand, can I just ask a question? For those that understand
yeah,
don't understand complementary angles, we know that the pyramid angle is approximately 52 degrees. So the complement is when we take that away from 90 and we get 38 degrees. So which
that's
line
right.
on that diagram related to the 38.1 degree line? Where was that pointing to? Because that's
Show you
important.
that too, because I want to clarify that for people. I just
Yeah.
got to find that document. It's here it is. Okay, so here's the document that will clarify exactly what you just said, and then I'll show you my 38-degree line, and
Yeah, that's
you're not going to believe where it
That's the
goes.
culmination of all of this. That what we're talking about is about this complementary angle. Yeah.
So here's your three pyramids at Giza. Khufu is 51.853972. Khafre 51.84. Menkaure 51.34. So your complementary leftover on the Great Pyramid is 38.146.
Yeah.
Complementary on Khafre is 38.16. So it's increased just a tiny bit.
Mm-hmm.
And Menkaure's pyramid is 38.659, so it's grown quite a bit.
Yeah.
Now, when we go to so the what's known as the angle of resurrection to the ancient Egyptians is the complementary angle between 38 and 39 degrees. That's what the angle of resurrection is. So let me show you what that actually looks like in a graphic. But let me go before I find that graphic, because I don't want to run out of time. Let me go back because you wanted to know what is the 38 to 39 degree angle. It's right between the two. So what that angle is this angle here. So when we pull back, you see this angle here is 38 to 39 degrees to the east, takes us to
Is that
the
the blue line?
temple,
The blue line you're talking
the
about?
blue line,
Yep.
takes us to where Jesus appeared in his resurrection body. Notice that he's appearing at resurrection angle at the
Mm,
Magdala temple, which was discovered really not that long ago and was excavated. And
mm,
again, proven that Mary Magdalene was from a wealthy family in the Sea of Galilee. This is where Jesus appears three times in the scripture
mm,
at the 30 to 39-degree line where the Magdala Chapel temple excavation took place. So again, something is rising at 38, 39 degrees to the east, and the setting angle to the west of that same angle, which is Great Pyramid complementary, is, I'm not going to believe it, what Mary Magdalene is sent in the boat with her followers and quite possibly the children of her and Jesus at this angle. This is the complementary angle. This is where her boat lands in just west of Marseille, France, where there were actually a lot of boats. There wasn't just one boat. There were
Oh.
quite a few followers. Now, if I continue that angle all the way around the Earth, of course, the angle changes on a sphere, but we've left the pyramid between 38 and 39 degrees. It's closer to 38 than 39. And when I go all the way around the planet, guess where I come to? And plus the harmony of the order calculation at this distance is phenomenal. I come to the Pyramid of the Sun of Mexico, right
Oh
here,
my God. Yes.
at that complementary angle. And if I continue just a little bit, I come to the apparition site of Juan Diego, where the image of the Mother Mary is imprinted on the cactus fiber, what is known as the tilma, right here. It's a very, very famous event that took place in the December 12th, 1531 was the same as December 22nd on our current calendar. So it was winter solstice. And so she's appearing in her resurrection body at resurrection angle, the Mother Mary, to him, Juan Diego. And it's just a little bit out of alignment with the Pyramid of the Sun, that apparition. The Pyramid of the Sun is, again, comes in. Let's go all the way back because there's something I forgot when we come back all the
Mm.
way.
Wow. Thanks to
See
Google
around there.
Earth.
That's my Google Earth. So I'm all I did is connected the 2 points, measured the distance, calculated the harmony of the order, which
Mm.
that calculation I have again shows the harmony of the planets and percentage values. But again, on its rising side, you see, not only do I have the resurrection of Jesus's body in the scripture at the Sea of Galilee at resurrection angle, but the Zaytun Church is also where the Mother Mary appeared for almost 3 years, starting in 1968, in a luminous body that was
Mm.
photographed and seen by millions of people, also appeared at that same angle of 38, 39 degrees. I'll
Right.
show you really quick in a screen share some of
And
the
that's the same
photos.
time in your last video you said in 1969, I think Pope Pius VI announced that Mary
Right.
Magdalene was never a prostitute. So there was all this revelation about the authenticity of Mary Magdalene around this time.
Right. She was not a prostitute, and a lot of the Western churches never really rectified and acknowledged the correction. This is an actual photograph of her body of light, which apparently blinded the photographers. And
Mm.
there's hundreds of thousands of people watching this.
Amazing.
A resurrected body person accompanied by UFO phenomena in the sky above her, glowing craft or birds. We don't know what they were. There were healings that took place. And this went on for just under 3 years. So it was indisputably happening. But she's appearing at 38, 39-degree angle from the Great Pyramid, which again takes us to the same, mathematics and
Mm.
realization.
Amazing. What a story. That it's just so cosmic. It's and this is why people do need to study astrology. Astrology has a bad name, or astronomy. There's a dispute between astrology and astronomy. But this is really threading it all together for me. If we had to
Yeah.
summarize, can we say that the way that you've revealed this hyperdimensional solar system, this double sun, cracking this code, can we summarize and say it was all based on the golden ratio? Can we be naive enough
Oh
to say
yeah.
that 1.618 was the key that unlocked this tapestry of new information? And there's a lot more to come,
Oh
I
yeah.
believe. And yeah,
Well, there's a lot more to come, but I could say yes that we've done just that, and it's evolving every month. Again, all of these positions that I've done, it takes time. I've made videos for people who want to see them. You can just go to my website and write me, or go to my YouTube channel, and you can see I've done an 8-part series on all of these angles coming out of the Great Pyramid,
Can you, before
leading
we
to the
close,
Desert.
can you give people your which website to go to so they can follow,
Yeah, my
watch some
website
videos?
is actually my name. It's David Sereda .co. I'll just put it up on the screen here for a second so people can see it, and you can really understand how I've done this
Yeah.
is by actually getting these frequencies through my coil systems and transmitters into my nervous system. And like a musical instrument, once you tune your nervous system to very specific frequencies and harmonies, the door in consciousness starts to open.
And
That's
I've
how
got,
I've done this.
yeah, and I got one of his, I'm holding here one of David's scepters that I'm so proud to have. I work with this every day, David. This is my morning meditation. I do solar gaze and I stare at the sun every morning. And every time when the light hits, say, this topaz or the sapphires, I get some kind of illumination about what crystals are teaching us. And so I just wanted to honor you for this highly professionally made scepter and all the other stuff that you're doing. And would love people to go there and support your amazing craft and wisdom as well. So I'd like to close on that. And can I read out a little poem that I wrote when
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
20? And
sure.
when I was I'll share the screen in a minute, but I wrote a book. I'd been to Lebanon. My father was a businessman. He did real estate in Lebanon. He bought mountains of zaytun, which is olives. You're talking about zaytun. So we owned olive groves in Lebanon, and I went there when I was 15 and 21. And when I was 21, I wrote a book called The Time Twins, where I was kind of talking to my higher self. So there's a picture of Jesus and the devil, but they're interconnected between the magic square of 4 by 4. That's a Jupiter sigil, that magic square that I'm interested in. In fact, my whole library is all the world's collection of magic squares. But I wrote a
Right.
I wrote a poem. And you got to imagine I'm only 21. And I wrote a poem about a mosquito flew into my ear, a mosquito, and it's asking me, "What did you see?" So this mosquito comes into my head and says, "What did you see?" Um, so it goes on, and it says, I saw a star, it lay betwixt my brows. I saw a moon, 'twas in thine womb. I saw a rainbow, it lieth behind thy eyes. I saw a river of beautifully created thoughts. So it keeps going on, and it's coming to a diagram that I'll show you this diagram that I drew. So I'll just share the screen. Because I wrote this at a really early age. So where's share screen? So share screen. So let me find it. So this was the cover. So that's the cover of the book with Jupiter on the front. And this is what I wrote. So I'm 21 years old. I'm still a virgin. I've had no life experience. And suddenly I'm in Lebanon writing poetry for the first time in my first drawing. So this is very naive, but I must have heard a rumor from a scholar like yourself. Someone must have said that Jupiter was getting brighter like a sun. There was some astronomical evidence to say that Jupiter here was getting brighter and brighter. And so I had this kind of vision that one day Earth, this is the symbol for Earth, the cross in the circle. So Earth was going to have an infinity pathway around Jupiter and the sun. So, so this is going back like 40 years. I'm thinking that there's a two sun system, exactly what you've just verified. And this is the poetry I wrote around it. I saw mystical winged horses in the sky and spacecraft in stables. I saw centaurs fluting in the hills. I saw new seas and golden dolphins reincarnating. I saw Babaji. I saw Babaji. I saw the eyes of the hands and the white healing light. I saw one religion and it was gentle and soul. I saw spirit growing in plant. I saw man. I saw woman, the sower of seeds. I saw blue orayed children planting stars into the earth. I saw a tree. Its fruit were crystal balls. There was a new sun and a new earth, and its orbit the eternity sign. I saw you, I saw me, and we all lived war free. So I just wanted to show that. Yeah, so and while I've got you, David, a diagram. There was a diagram of the golden rectangle, a discovery. Um, Actually, it's in another. I wanted to show you another diagram. Diagram. This will blow you out because everything you've just explained about the pyramid angle and inside the golden rectangle. So here's the golden rectangle. And this is what's done in my early years. Again, I've been obsessed about the golden rectangle, but if we put a circle around the, see this red big, here's the square of the golden rectangle. If we put a circle around it, we've got a red circle. Now, for all the diminishing squares, there's a square here, then a smaller square, and a smaller square. It goes, diminishes forever. But if you keep putting circles around all these squares, they all the circles around these squares converge at the eye of the spiral. So here's the golden spiral. But if we were to put circles around the four corners of every little square, everything converges on the eye of the golden spiral. Um, yeah, so I was really proud of that revelation. Um, it's
It's wonderful.
converging on
Yeah.
what I call the sweet spot. I call that the sweet spot. Yeah, so
I love how you've been studying all the magic squares. I mean, wasn't it Newton or was it Benjamin Franklin who was, no, it was Franklin
yeah,
who
Benjamin
had,
Franklin. Yes, I have it somewhere. Yeah, he. No one knows how Benjamin Franklin created his magic square. We can create any magic square, but we no one's able to reproduce Benjamin Franklin's square. Here's something from the Vedas, called the Navagraha. Nava means nine, and the Graha is the planets. But they worked with magic squares. This is the main magic square here, 618, 753, 294. All adds up to 15, the columns, rows, and diagonals. But by continually adding three, if we're starting from one here, then we start from two, and then we can start from three. The numbers get bigger and bigger. But if you add up all these numbers, it all adds up to 999. So this is a chart that I did. I do lots of big charts, but Magic Square seems to be sort of a codified knowledge of all the harmonics of the planets. You could do a whole book just on all these magic squares. It's a alchemical
oh
cosmology.
yeah, no, that would be incredible. Yeah, I've looked at a lot of magic squares actually. I was introduced to them in the book Jesus Christ, Son of God by a professor from the East Coast. David Fiddler, I think is his name.
Oh yeah, Fiddler, yeah,
He goes into the magic squares in ancient Christianity and Greek Hellenistic studies, and
yeah. So as
it
you
was
know, a lot of
John Searle. John Searle, you know, the guy who allegedly built a flying saucer that flew, coded his magnetic fields on his magnets that produced levitation,
oh
allegedly, by encoding the numbers of magic squares onto the magnets.
wow,
And in fact, John Searle told me this himself,
yep.
and before he died. And so nobody has ever gotten the Searle motor to cause a craft to fly. But according to Searle, it's all about the magic squares.
I just did a podcast on not Professor Searle. Professor Searle came to Byron Bay and I missed the lecture, but I just last month my first podcast like I'm doing with you. My first experiment with Zoom and podcast with was a student of Professor Searle living in Cairns, which is like 2,000 miles north of Byron Bay where I am at the tip of Australia. So I've just been fascinated. I'm so fascinated by Professor Searle's technology with magnets and magic squares and so really
Yeah,
my
I know
life,
how he did it.
yeah.
What Searle did is he took like a neodymium, and the number of times he wrapped the copper wire when he zapped it with electricity represented the number in the magic square.
That's right.
So
Yes.
one magnet would get programmed by, let's say, three windings, another magnet seven, right? I'm just being
Yep.
hypothetical. That's how he programmed the numbers into the magnets. It was
Right.
very simple. And yet everybody who built the Searle motor didn't do this, as far as I know. And Searle died, and we don't know how he did it. He died with his secret.
I know. Yes, I've got all his books here in my library, not right here, but my whole house is a library. I've got all his books and early videos and everything. We might come to a conclusion soon, but I just was looking at some of the old Hermetic stuff, the septagram, where if we follow the arrows, you sort of start from the sun, moon, like Sunday, Monday, then Mars is Tuesday, and Mercury is Wednesday. Then we go to follow the arrow. We go to Thursday. Venus is Friday, Frigg, the goddess Frigg, and we go to Saturn Saturday, back to Sunday. So there's a whole sort of alchemical septagram based on the 7 days of the week.